I had planned this trip for months. 2 weeks of sun, sand, and no work. Gulf Shores sounded like the perfect place to unwind with my kids. My sister Colleen said she wanted to join us, and at first, it felt like a great idea. We hadn't spent real time together in years. She offered to book a rental house, said it would be good for the cousins to play together, and even volunteered to handle the groceries. Everything looked normal on paper. That morning, the beach was picture perfect. Warm breeze, kids squealing in the waves, gulls circling overhead. I stretched out on a towel, feeling almost like a civilian again. 18 years in the Army will make you forget what a quiet morning feels like. Since leaving active duty, I'd been training National Guard units on security and logistics. It kept me busy, but also kept me from slowing down long enough to think. This was supposed to be my pause button. Colleen sat next to me, wearing oversized sunglasses and a floppy hat. She was chatting about some investment plans she'd seen on TV, something about high-yield bonds and freeing up cash. I smiled, nodded, and let her talk. My 2 kids, Tyler and Grace, were digging a trench in the sand a few yards away. Derek, our younger half-brother, had tagged along too. He was tossing a football up and down, acting like a lifeguard even though he wasn't one. I couldn't shake a faint itch in the back of my mind. Colleen had been overly interested in my retirement benefits lately. She'd asked how much I'd saved, how the military pension worked, whether I had life insurance. At the time, I brushed it off as curiosity. Families ask each other stuff. But this was the 3rd time she'd circled back to it. She leaned closer, lowering her voice under the crash of the surf. "You must feel secure with that Army pension," she said. "All those years, all that hard work. You deserve it." I gave her a polite shrug. "It keeps the lights on. That and whatever you got from the VA for the injuries," she added, eyes hidden behind her shades. "Minor injuries," I said flatly. "It's nothing." She laughed like she'd just made a joke. "Well, I'm proud of you, sis. You always landed on your feet." There was a pause. She took out her phone, started scrolling. Derek wandered over and asked if I'd be interested in a day trip to a shooting range nearby. "They have a veterans discount," he said. "We could take the kids, teach them some safety." I raised an eyebrow. "Kids aren't old enough for that." "It's more like a demo," he said quickly. "You'd like it. They've got new rifles in." I waved him off. "We're at the beach. Let's keep it simple." He walked away, muttering something I couldn't hear. The waves rolled in. Tyler and Grace built their trench. Colleen typed on her phone, then pretended to check on the kids. Derek kept pacing. My gut told me something was off. Years of reading people in the field had taught me to pay attention to small tells. Colleen's hands trembled slightly when she held her drink. Derek's eyes kept darting toward me, then away. I reminded myself this was family, not a briefing room. Still, I felt the tension rising under the sunshine. I got up to stretch, scanning the horizon like it was second nature. Tourists, umbrellas, kids with buckets. No immediate threats. My phone buzzed on the towel. I picked it up, expecting a weather alert. Instead, a text appeared from an unknown number. "Leave quietly. Don't tell your sister." No emojis, no name, just that sentence. For a second, I thought it was a prank. Then my heart rate spiked. The message might as well have been a flashback to Afghanistan, when coded warnings meant lives on the line. I looked up. Colleen was still scrolling. Derek had walked toward the snack shack. The kids were oblivious. I typed back quickly. "Who is this?" The reply came almost instantly. "Travis Odell. We need to talk. Now." Travis. The name hit me like cold water. He'd been a private under my command overseas. I dragged him out of a blown-up Humvee, stayed with him until medevac arrived. Last I heard, he'd been working civilian security in Florida. I slipped the phone into my bag and forced my face neutral. "I'm feeling a little dizzy," I told Colleen. "Must be the Sunday." End quote. She looked up, concern flickering across her face. "Do you want water? Sit down." "I'm going to take the kids back to the rental for a bit," I said. "Need some shade." "No problem," she said brightly. "We'll be here." I called to Tyler and Grace. "Come on, guys. We're heading back for lunch." They groaned but obeyed. As we walked toward the parking lot, I scanned behind me. Derek was still at the shack. Colleen waved, then turned back to her phone. I loaded the kids into the car, started the engine, and drove a block over to a small strip mall. Change of plan, I told them lightly. We're getting ice cream. They cheered. I parked near a side exit and pulled out my phone. Where? I texted. Behind the old bait shop. Gray SUV. I recognized the location. 5 minutes away. Ice cream will have to wait, I said. We're meeting an old friend first. I kept my tone casual. The kids didn't notice anything. Driving off, my hands felt steady but my mind was running hot. Years of drills and briefings were clicking back into place. Someone I trusted had just told me to leave quietly and not tell my sister. That meant danger. That meant something I didn't yet understand was about to hit. The sun glared off the windshield. Gulf Shores looked like any other tourist town, but I felt the old combat alertness crawling back under my skin. I turned into the gravel lot behind the bait shop. A gray SUV sat in the corner. Travis stepped out, taller than I remembered, in civilian clothes, but with the same squared-off posture. He lifted a hand in a quick wave. "Stay here, kids," I said, keeping my voice cheerful. 5 minutes. I got out, shut the door gently, and walked toward him. He met me halfway. "Ma'am," he said softly. "Don't call me ma'am," I said. "What's going on?" He glanced at the car, then back at me. "We don't have long. It's about your sister." End of 4. A seagull cried overhead. My stomach tightened. "Start talking," I said. And that's where everything I thought I knew about this family trip started to tilt, though on the surface nothing had changed yet. I folded my arms, waiting for Travis to actually spit it out. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week, eyes bloodshot, jaw tight. He didn't waste time with small talk. "Your sister and Derek are in deep," he said. "I overheard them at the Veterans Club in Pensacola. They were talking about you, about your pension, your benefits, your savings. They're trying to get to it, and they're not planning to wait around." I blinked hard, trying to process. "You're telling me they're broke, and their solution is what, borrow money from me?" Travis shook his head. "Not borrow, take. They're already in with a loan shark outfit out of Texas. Techstar Lending. Ugly crew. They're on the hook for 400 grand. They were bragging they had a way out, that with your paperwork and your accounts, they'd clear it all. Derek even waved around a forged power of attorney. Looked military, with your name on it. The hot air seemed to thicken around me. "You're serious?" He nodded once. "Dead serious. And that text I sent you? It wasn't paranoia. They talked about staging an accident at the range, something that wouldn't raise suspicion. You know how that looks when law enforcement finds a decorated veteran gone too soon?" I stared at him, my pulse hammering in my ears. They said this out loud? They didn't know I was close enough. I was working a security shift, sitting right behind a partition. Every word clear. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and showed me a short recording. Derek's voice came through, low but distinct. "We'll set it up at the range. It'll look like a misfire. Nobody questions that stuff. Once she's gone, Colleen signs the papers. The bank wires the funds. Done." My chest went cold. It's one thing to imagine your family taking advantage of you, another to hear them talk about wiping you off the map. "What's the play here, Travis?" I asked quietly. "You get out of sight. You keep the kids safe, and you don't let them smell that you know a thing." I looked back at the car where Tyler and Grace were busy arguing over an empty bag of chips. "They don't know?" He shook his head. "No, but Colleen and Derek? They're desperate. People in debt to Techstar don't get extensions, they get threats. Sometimes worse. If they don't deliver something soon, they're screwed. That's why they're pushing so hard." I rubbed my temple, trying to ground myself. "Okay, say they forged a power of attorney. They still need my cooperation, my ID, my signature. They can't just walk in and cash out military accounts." Travis gave me a look I didn't like. "They don't need you alive for that. They just need the papers and enough staged evidence to keep the bank from asking too many questions. I've seen it done. You'd be surprised how fast fraud moves when everyone thinks it's above board." I hated that he sounded like he knew exactly what he was talking about. My instincts screamed to throw the kids in the car and drive until the gas ran out. But that wasn't a plan. That was panic. I'd learned a long time ago that panic got people killed. I forced myself to steady my breathing. "You said Techstar. That means organized crime, right? Not just some payday loan joint? They clean their front with a lending company, Travis said. Behind the curtain, they're tied into smuggling and collections. I've seen their handiwork. It's not pretty. I pressed my palms against my thighs. And you're telling me Colleen and Derek thought this was their solution? Travis's mouth tightened. I wish I wasn't, but you know I owe you. You pulled me out of that Humvee. If I let you walk blind into this, I couldn't live with it. I gave him a sharp nod. You did the right thing. Now we need to do the smart thing. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The muffled sound of waves and traffic drifted in. My brain was turning gears fast. Colleen's casual questions about my benefits, Derek's push for the shooting range, it all snapped into a grim puzzle. Okay, I said finally. I need to know what evidence exists. What you've got, what law enforcement can use. Because if this is as real as it sounds, I'm not just their sister, I'm their target. Travis tapped his phone again. I've got that clip. I've got screenshots of the paperwork Derek showed. I didn't take it out of his hands, but I caught enough to prove forgery. And I've already flagged it with a friend in CID. He's waiting on confirmation. That word SID snapped my thoughts into order. Criminal Investigation Division, Army investigators. If they were already involved, this was more than a family squabble. I adjusted my stance, shoulders back like I was back in uniform. Then we move fast. I'm not letting my kids eat dinner under the same roof as people planning to bury me. Travis's eyes flicked toward the car. They need to stay out of sight. If Colleen suspects she'll accelerate everything. I can handle Colleen, I said. But we do this clean. No hero moves. We bring Sid in and let them string the rope. End footnote. He studied me a second, then nodded. That's the Eveline I remember. I let out a dry laugh. You remember the one who swore too much and never slept. That one saved my life, he said simply. I glanced back at the SUV, where Grace had plastered her face to the window, watching me. I forced a smile and waved at her. She waved back, satisfied. Every nerve in me was alert now. The vacation was gone, the trust was gone. What remained was a mission. Get proof, stay alive, protect the kids. All right, I said, lowering my voice. We call Sid. We set up a controlled op, and we don't breathe a word to Colleen until the cuffs go on. Travis leaned in. Then let's make the call. I took out my phone, thumb hovering over the screen. My hands felt steady, like they always did before things got messy. Some habits never fade, no matter how far you get from the battlefield. And when the line connected, I knew there was no more pretending this was just another family trip. The call went through on the first ring. A calm male voice answered, identifying himself as Special Agent Marcus Trent with CID. Travis gave a quick rundown, crisp and clipped, as if we were both back on active duty. I filled in details where he paused, keeping my tone level even though my stomach churned. Marcus asked a few direct questions, no wasted words. He told us to drive to the county sheriff's office immediately and bring any evidence we had. I hung up and walked back to the SUV. Change of plan, I told the kids, keeping my voice light. Quick stop before ice cream. They groaned but didn't argue. Years of being an Army mom had trained them to roll with abrupt changes. Travis followed me in his vehicle. We pulled into the sheriff's lot 15 minutes later. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and floor polish. A uniformed deputy led us to a small interview room where Marcus waited in plain clothes, badge on his belt. He was mid-30s, squared shoulders, eyes scanning everything. He shook my hand firmly. Colonel Marks, thank you for coming. Just Marks now, I said. Retired. He gave a half smile. Old habits. We sat down. Travis handed over his phone. Marcus plugged it into a laptop, played the clip. Derek's voice filled the room, describing the misfire at the range, the forged paperwork, the wire transfer. Marcus didn't blink. He typed notes as the recording played. I'll need a sworn statement from you, Sergeant Odell, he said. Understood, Travis replied. Marcus turned to me. Ma'am, do you have reason to believe your sister or brother has already drugged you? Yes, I said flatly. I had an unusual reaction to bottled water at the rental house yesterday. Headache, dizziness. I thought it was heat. He nodded once. We can get a blood draw now. Our lab can test for sedatives. If positive, that's felony evidence. I rolled up my sleeve. A nurse appeared like magic, swabbed my arm, drew 2 vials without ceremony. I didn't flinch. Years of medical tense had dulled me to needles. Marcus continued. Here's the reality. Financial crimes tied to veterans' benefits are federal. If they forged a power of attorney, that's already serious. Add a murder plot, and you're in attempted murder plus conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government. But to get airtight charges, we need them on record talking about it. That's where you come in. I'm in here. I met his eyes. You want me to go back in? That's the cleanest path, he said. We wire you up, you play along, get them to confirm details. We'll be nearby with warrants ready. Once we have enough, we move. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. I'm not afraid to do it, but my kids don't go back in that house. They won't, Marcus assured. We'll relocate them with a family liaison officer tonight. No contact with your sister until we're ready. Travis shifted in his chair. I'll be outside as backup, he said. Nobody gets near her. Marcus nodded. Good. We'll keep it tight. No cowboy moves. The minute they smell a setup, they'll bolt or do something stupid. We need you to act like you're still in the dark but willing to help them with the paperwork. I could already hear Colleen's voice in my head, soft and persuasive. She'd always been good at playing victim when she wanted something. I'd once bailed her out of credit card trouble, thinking it was a one-time slip. Apparently it wasn't. Marcus slid a consent form across the table. This authorizes us to wire you and record, all admissible in federal court. I signed without hesitation. All right, he said. We'll fit you with a button mic and a thin camera in your glasses. Nothing exotic, all legal. The nurse returned, handed Marcus a slip. He read it and looked up. Positive for lorazepam. That's a prescription sedative. You have any prescription for that? No, I said. Then we've got them on a legal administration of a controlled substance, he said. That alone is a felony. The room seemed to shrink around me. I wasn't surprised, just angry. Angry at myself for ignoring the subtle signs. Angry at Colleen for crossing a line you don't cross. Marcus leaned forward. You okay to do this tonight? I'm fine, I said. I've handled worse. He gave a quick nod. We'll get your kids settled first. Then you go back in. You don't confront them. You let them talk. We'll be staged outside. Once Derek or Colleen mentions the range or the forged documents again, we're good. Understood. The deputy came back with forms for me to sign regarding temporary custody of the kids. I walked them out to a separate room where a female officer waited with juice boxes and a smile. Grace clung to my arm for a second. Are we in trouble, Mom? She whispered. No, I said calmly. This is just work stuff. You're safe. She nodded, reassured. Tyler gave me a curious look but said nothing. Back in the interview room, Marcus briefed me on the technical gear. The mic is in this necklace, camera in the glasses. Tap twice on the frame if you feel threatened. That's our signal to come in. Travis checked the equipment like he was back in uniform. Signal strength's good, he muttered. I slipped on the glasses, felt the weight of the necklace against my collarbone. It looked like costume jewelry, nothing special. Marcus handed me a script. These are soft prompts, questions you can ask that nudge them to talk without tipping them off. Practice them now. I scanned the list. How will the transfer work again? What's the timeline at the range? Will I need to sign anything tonight? Simple, believable. I rehearsed each one aloud. My voice stayed steady. Years of briefings had taught me to sound calm under pressure. Travis watched me with a kind of quiet respect. You sure you're good? I gave him a tight smile. I'm not the one who should be nervous. We left the sheriff's office at dusk. The sun was sliding down over the bay, casting long shadows. I drove my own car, Travis following. The plan was to park a block from the rental, let CID set up around the perimeter, and then walk in like nothing had happened. The whole time, my mind ran scenarios. Colleen pouring another drink. Derek bragging about the range. Paperwork on the table. If they stayed on script, I'd get them talking. If they veered, I'd improvise. Either way, there was no turning back. As we approached the street where the rental house sat, I rolled my shoulders, loosening the tension. The glasses felt ordinary now, part of me. The necklace lay cool against my skin. I could almost hear Marcus's voice in my ear, even though the feed was one way. I parked at the edge of the block. Travis pulled in behind me. He stepped out, keeping his distance, just another guy on his phone. Down the street, I saw Colleen's SUV in the driveway, lights glowing inside the house. I took a deep breath, opened the door, and put one foot on the pavement. My hand brushed the frame of the glasses, not tapping yet, just reminding myself of the signal. Time to go back into the lion's den looking like a sister, not a soldier. I walked up the driveway like I had 100 other times. Steady steps, shoulders loose, a beach bag slung casually over one arm. Inside, Colleen's voice floated from the kitchen, bright and sweet. The smell of pasta drifted out. To anyone passing by, it looked like a normal evening at a rental house by the beach. I pushed the door open. "Hey," I called. "Kids are with friends. I thought I'd grab a bite here." Colleen appeared, apron on, face lighting up. Great timing. Derek setting the table. "You okay? You looked pale earlier." "I'm fine," I said, slipping off my shoes. "Too much Sunday." Her eyes flicked over me, searching. "You sure?" "Yeah. Smells good in here." I moved toward the kitchen, noting every detail. Derek was at the counter, lining up plates like a man rehearsing for a show. He grinned awkwardly. "Got your favorite wine," he said. "Figured you'd want to relax." "Nice of you," I said, keeping my tone neutral. I sat at the table, bag at my feet. The mic in my necklace stayed hidden. CID agents were parked down the street in unmarked cars, listening. Travis was somewhere within sight, but not too close. Colleen poured wine into my glass. "So, tell me," she said lightly, "how does that whole military pension thing work again? I keep reading different things online." I took a sip of water instead of wine. Depends on years served, rank at retirement, disability rating. "Why?" She shrugged, acting casual. "Just curious. You always seem so organized with money. I wish I'd been like that." Derek sat across from me. "Speaking of money," he said, "I found something that could help you. Some paperwork to simplify your benefits. Less taxes, faster access." I tilted my head. "Really?" He nodded eagerly. "Yeah, a power of attorney form specific to VA benefits. Totally legal. You sign it, we handle the paperwork for you. You don't have to lift a finger." And I let my brows lift just enough to look interested. "Sounds fancy. How would that work?" Derek leaned forward, lowering his voice like it was a secret. "You sign tonight, we file tomorrow. The funds move quick. No waiting. It's all smooth." I glanced at Colleen. She smiled, but her knuckles were white around her fork. "That's generous," I said. "But why now?" Colleen jumped in. "We just hate to see you stressed. You've done so much for us. This would free you up." I gave a small laugh. "I'm not stressed. I'm on vacation." Derek tried again. "It's a good deal. You get your money, we handle the boring part. Plus, we have connections at the bank." I set my glass down. "Connections like Techstar lending?" For a split second, both of them froze. Then Colleen forced a laugh. "What's that?" "I heard the name somewhere," I said casually. "Some veteran charity, maybe?" Colleen shook her head. "Never heard of it." Derek busied himself with the breadbasket. I leaned back, making it look like I was just settling in. "So, about this paperwork. Does it need a witness? Notary?" "Not necessarily," Derek said quickly. "We've got it covered." I gave him a small smile. "You two always have things covered." Colleen's eyes flicked to Derek. "We're just trying to help," she said. "I appreciate that," I said, voice even. "And this shooting range thing tomorrow? Still on?" Derek hesitated. "Could be." "Why?" "Just wondering if the kids can tag along," I said. "They like watching." "No," Derek said sharply. "Too dangerous for kids." I raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous? It's a demo, right?" He cleared his throat. "Yeah, just not for kids." I let silence stretch. The air in the room thickened. Colleen fussed with the pasta, avoiding my eyes. I picked up my water again. "You know," I said lightly, "I've been thinking about simplifying everything. Maybe you're right. Maybe signing something tonight would be easier. You've got the forms here?" Derek's face brightened. "In the back room." He started to stand, but Colleen touched his arm, stopping him. "Maybe after dinner," she said. "Sure," I said. "After dinner." I twirled some pasta, forced myself to eat a bite. My heart was steady, but my mind cataloged every movement. The way Derek's knee bounced under the table, the way Colleen's smile slipped whenever money came up. Derek tried for small talk about sports. Colleen asked about my training work. I answered in short, neutral phrases, just enough to keep them talking. The necklace mic caught everything. Halfway through the meal, Derek leaned in again. You trust us, right? I gave a quick laugh. You're my family. That's what I thought, he said. Colleen poured more wine, her hand trembling slightly. It's just paperwork, Evelyn. No big deal. I glanced at my watch. No big deal, I echoed. Just paperwork. They relaxed a notch, thinking they were back in control. That was fine. The more they talked, the deeper the hole they dug. Derek started describing the benefits again, throwing around numbers. Almost $1 million, he said under his breath, like he couldn't help himself. Colleen shot him a warning look. I speared another bite of pasta. That's a lot of money, I said calmly. He grinned nervously. It's life-changing. I bet it is, I said. The front door creaked in the evening breeze. Derek jumped. Colleen wiped her hands on a towel. I smiled as if nothing in the world was wrong. Inside, every nerve was lit. The necklace felt heavier, the glasses tighter. After dinner then, I said pleasantly, we'll go over that paperwork. They both nodded. Their smiles stretched thin. And just like that, the trap kept closing, even while we passed the breadbasket like a normal family. I swirled the last bite of pasta on my fork and forced myself to chew slowly, keeping my breathing calm. Derek's knee kept bouncing under the table. Colleen's eyes flicked to the hallway where the forged papers waited. They thought they were a few signatures away from salvation. I kept my face neutral, acting like a sister who'd had too much sun and too much wine, not a trained officer wired up for a federal operation. When the plates were mostly empty, I stood up. Let me just step outside for some air, I said lightly. Too warm in here. They both murmured assent. I walked onto the porch, letting the evening air hit my face. The CID van was parked a block away. No lights, but I knew Marcus was watching. I touched the frame of my glasses once. Not the double tap that would signal danger, just a subtle check. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Good. Keep them talking. Ask about the range again. I typed back without looking like I was texting. Understood. I stepped back inside, smiling. So, I said, about that shooting range. You sure the kids can't come? They've been curious about safety. Derek chuckled nervously. Like I said, not for kids. Liability. Colleen jumped in. It's just something special for you, sis. A chance to unwind. I tilted my head, feigning interest. Okay. And after that, the paperwork? Derek grinned too wide. Exactly. And it clicked. I eased back into my chair, leaning one elbow on the table. You know, the Army always taught me to plan ahead. Risk assessments. You two sound like you've planned everything. Colleen's smile froze. It's just paperwork, Evelyn. Sure, I said, letting the word hang. They started clearing dishes. Derek disappeared into the back room, probably checking the documents. Colleen busied herself at the sink. I stayed seated, eyes on her movements. You look tired, I said conversationally. Stressful week? She snorted. You have no idea. Maybe you should tell me, I said, voice low. She didn't answer, just ran the water harder. I stood, walked over, and set a hand on her shoulder. Colleen, I've always had your back. Whatever you're into, you can tell me. Her shoulders tensed. She turned, eyes glossy. It's complicated. I bet it is, I said gently. Derek came back with a manila folder, breaking the moment. Here it is, he said. We can look it over after dessert. And, I smiled. Perfect. They both visibly relaxed again, thinking they had me hooked. That was fine. The longer they thought that, the more they'd talk. After a token dessert of store-bought pie, Derek set the folder on the table. All you have to do is sign, he said softly. We'll take care of the rest. You'll be glad you did. I traced a finger over the edge of the folder. How soon will the transfer go through? Next day, he said. Maybe even same day. We've got friends. End option. I gave a small, curious laugh. And the range? That's tomorrow morning? He nodded. Yeah. Early. Less people around. I met his gaze. Efficient. Colleen busied herself with coffee. You're making it sound shady, she said with a brittle laugh. I'm just asking, I said. Derek pushed the folder closer. Sign tonight. We'll handle everything. I opened it slowly. The document was a crude attempt at a power of attorney, stamped with fake seals that might fool a teller but not a lawyer. I let my eyes scan it, lips pursed like I was thinking. Looks official, I said, but I'd need to know exactly what's in it. It just lets us move money for you, Derek said quickly. I flipped a page. And if something happens to me? Colleen turned sharply. What do you mean? Life's unpredictable, I said. Accidents at shooting ranges, for example. Silence dropped like a stone. Derek's hand tightened on his coffee mug. I set the folder down. I'm just cautious. No. He forced a laugh. Nothing's gonna happen to you. Good, I said, because the kids would be devastated. Colleen swallowed hard. Of course they would. I leaned back, making it look like idle conversation. Still, I'm curious. Who told you about this power of attorney trick? A bank rep? A lawyer? Derek hesitated. A friend. From Tex. He caught himself. A finance guy. I raised an eyebrow. Sounds like a solid guy. Colleen shot him a glare. I picked up my glass, took a slow sip of water. Well, I said softly, I'll think about it. Derek tried to hide his frustration. Nothing to think about, it's a done deal. I smiled thinly. Everything's a done deal until it isn't. The kitchen clock ticked loud in the pause. Outside, a car rolled past, headlights sweeping the blinds. Colleen sat down opposite me, hands clasped. We just want to help you, she said again, her voice cracking a little. I studied her face, the faint tremor in her jaw. She wasn't a born criminal. She was desperate, drowning in debt, clinging to a rotten lifeline. That didn't make the plan any less lethal. I know, I said gently. You've always wanted the best for me. She blinked rapidly, like she might cry. Derek shifted, uncomfortable. I reached across the table, laid my hand over hers. You could just tell me what's going on, I said quietly. Cut the act. We're family. End of tenor. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Derek stood abruptly. I'll get the pen, he muttered, heading for the hallway. I squeezed Colleen's hand once, then let go. You don't have to do this, I said softly. She looked away, jaw tight. It's too late. I kept my face calm, but inside every instinct was on high alert. My glasses felt warm against my temples, the mic steady at my throat. Somewhere down the street, Marcus and his team were listening to every word. Derek came back, pen in hand, eyes bright. Ready? I smiled faintly. Almost. I tapped the frame of my glasses once, a subtle pre-signal. Not yet. Not the double tap. Just letting them know things were heating up. Then I opened the folder again, pen poised, and said lightly, walk me through it one more time. Derek launched into the explanation, spilling details he thought would reassure me. The words flowed, the trap tightening. And while he talked, Colleen's hands trembled against her coffee cup, her eyes darting toward the door like she could already hear footsteps outside. I rolled the pen between my fingers and let the silence stretch. Derek shifted in his seat like a man about to jump from a moving car. Colleen sat stiffly, her hands clasped tight on the table. The air felt heavy enough to cut with a knife. Let's make this simple, I said in a voice so even it surprised even me. We're family. You've both been talking around things all night. Stop circling. Tell me straight what's going on. Colleen's lips parted, then closed. Derek shot her a warning look. I'm serious, I went on. No more paperwork talk, no more half-truths. Out with it. Colleen's eyes darted to the window and back. She whispered, We're in debt. I figured that much, I said. How deep? She stared at the table. 400 grand. Derek added, and that's just principal. I let out a low whistle. That's not a hole, that's a crater. Derek rubbed his forehead. It's not like we planned it. I leaned forward. You sure planned everything else? Colleen's voice cracked. We didn't know what else to do. They threatened Valerie. I cut her off, sharp. Don't you dare drag the kids into this. You chose the loans, you forged the documents, you drugged me. Own it. She flinched as if slapped. We were desperate, she whispered. I stared at her, then at Derek. Who exactly is they? Derek muttered. Miguel Vargas. They call him the Cutter. I nodded slowly. Good. Keep talking. Colleen's words tumbled out now, halting but unstoppable. He runs an outfit out of Houston. They offered us fast cash. We thought we could flip some property deals, pay him back before interest hit. But the market tanked. The interest kept piling up. We sold everything we could. Still not enough. He gave us a deadline. 2 days. Afton. And if you don't pay? I asked quietly. They come after us, Derek said. And not just us. Anyone close. I watched them both for a long moment. So you decided my savings were the answer. Colleen's tears started again. We thought we could do it quietly. Just a signature. And if I refused? Neither answered. I leaned back, crossing my arms. You're both adults. You knew what you were doing. Derek's voice hardened. We didn't plan to kill you. I raised an eyebrow. That's a comforting line. Colleen shot him a look. Stop talking. No, I said sharply. Let him talk. Derek's jaw worked. We thought if we could get you to sign the power of attorney, we could move the money and pay them. End of story. And if I balked at the bank? Colleen's hands trembled. Miguel told us to have a plan B. What plan B? She looked down. An accident. Something natural. No autopsy. The room went dead quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I let the words hang until they became unbearable. You're telling me you were ready to stage my death, I said flatly. Derek closed his eyes. It wasn't supposed to go that far. I kept my voice calm. When was it supposed to happen? Tomorrow, Colleen whispered. At the range. My training kicked in. I slowed my breathing, kept my hands relaxed. What exactly did you plan? Derek looked away. A heart episode. Colleen researched the medication. Colleen buried her face in her hands. I'm sorry. I took a sip of water, letting the hidden mic catch every word. Describe it, I said. Derek's tone went mechanical, like reciting orders. You'd take a sedative mixed in a drink, enough to make you weak. At the range, you'd collapse. We'd call 911. By the time they arrived, he trailed off. Colleen's sobs filled the silence. I placed the glass down carefully. You both rehearsed this? We had no choice, she whispered. You had 1,000 choices before this one, I said coldly. Derek's fists clenched. You think I don't know that? You think I sleep at night? I leaned forward, voice like steel. You were about to murder your sister for money. Don't try to make yourself the victim. He swallowed hard. I didn't want to hurt you. You already did, I said quietly. Colleen reached across the table like a supplicant. Eve, please, we're telling you now. Doesn't that count for something? I stared at her hand, but didn't take it. It counts as evidence. She froze. Evidence? I stood slowly, pushing my chair back with deliberate calm. You could have come clean before you forged my signature, before you put drugs in my drink, before you invited me to a private range. You waited until tonight, when you thought you had me cornered. Derek's voice cracked. We can fix this. You can try, I said, moving toward the living room. Colleen rose, following. Eve, don't walk away. We're scared. I turned to face them. You should be. Derek's eyes flicked to my shirt pocket, where the pen Saturday. He didn't know about the button mic or the camera in my glasses, but instinct told him something was off. What's going on? He asked slowly. Nothing you can control, I said. He took a step closer. You're different tonight. Too calm. I kept my gaze steady. Maybe I'm just done being a sucker. Colleen's face crumpled. We didn't want this to happen. It happened, I said flatly. I walked back to the table, sat down again. Finish your story. Derek hesitated, then spoke in a rush. Miguel gave us until Thursday. We promised him the money. He said if we failed, he'd start with Colleen's kid. He showed me pictures of what he's done to other people. We panicked. Colleen wiped her face. We were going to send you and the kids away after the transfer, somewhere safe. We weren't planning. You were planning everything, I said. Don't rewrite it now. Derek's voice dropped. We're sorry. I looked at them both. Sorry won't save you from Miguel. Or from the law. Colleen's eyes widened. The law? I stood, pushing the folder toward them. You've just confessed to conspiracy, fraud, and attempted murder. Out loud. On tape. They both went still, like deer in headlights. I took a breath, steady as a range shot. Now sit tight. Neither moved. I said sit. I repeated, sharper. They Saturday. I walked to the kitchen counter, set my empty glass down, and touched the frame of my glasses twice. Out on the street, a van door slid open. Inside, the air seemed to thicken as Derek and Colleen realized something had shifted, though they didn't yet know what. I turned back to them, expression unreadable. You two wanted a plan. You've got one now. They stared at me, lost. I sat down again, folded my hands on the table, and waited as the clock ticked toward the moment everything would break. The second tap on my glasses sent a silent pulse to Marcus's team, but in the kitchen nothing looked different. Derek's hands still gripped the edge of the table. Colleen's mascara streaks glistened under the overhead light. They thought they still had some control. I stayed seated, voice calm. You're going to walk me through everything about tomorrow, step by step. And Derek shifted, eyes narrowing. Why? Because if you expect me to sign, I need to know the full plan, I said, as if the pen in my hand still mattered. He hesitated, then spoke like a man slipping deeper into a hole. We drive to the range at 7. Private lane. You'll drink the vitamin water on the way. It'll calm you down. We'll do a few practice shots. If you feel weak, we call 911. Paperwork's already ready at the bank. Colleen signs for you with the power of attorney. We wire the funds to a clearing account. And then what? We pay Miguel. Everyone's safe. Colleen whispered. We just wanted it to be quick. I held his gaze. What happens to me after the bank? Nothing, Derek said too quickly. You're fine. I let a thin smile flicker. Right. The front door creaked as a breeze moved through. I heard, faintly, the crunch of tires outside. The team was moving into position. I set the pen down. You've both just told me you drugged me, forged papers, and planned an accident. Congratulations. Derek's face drained. What? Colleen blinked rapidly. Ave. I stood slowly, every muscle coiled. This is where the games stop. Derek shot to his feet. What's going on? I met his eyes. The same thing that happens when people plan crimes against a federal beneficiary. The law shows up. He glanced toward the windows. You called the cops? I didn't have to, I said. You did it yourselves with every word. Colleen's voice rose, panicked. Eve, please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said. Derek's fists clenched. You're wired, aren't you? I didn't answer. He lunged toward me, eyes wild. I sidestepped, military reflexes automatic, grabbing his wrist and twisting until the pen clattered to the floor. Sit down, I snapped. He groaned but obeyed, sinking back into the chair. Colleen pressed herself against the counter, shaking. We didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered. I kept my voice flat. You did. And you would have if I hadn't been warned. Footsteps pounded on the porch. The door burst open and Marcus's team poured in. Plainclothes but badges out. Weapons low and steady. Federal agents, don't move. Derek froze. Colleen let out a sob and raised her hands. Marcus strode in, calm and efficient. Colonel Marks, you're safe now. I stepped back, hands visible. They're all yours. Two agents cuffed Derek while another guided Colleen gently but firmly away from the counter. She kept murmuring, I'm sorry, like a mantra. Marcus looked at me. You okay? I exhaled slowly. Fine. He nodded to an agent. Get the kids from the safe house. We'll reunite them once processing's done. As Derek was let out, he twisted to look at me. He's going to kill us, he spat. You don't know what you've done. I met his gaze, unblinking. You did this. Colleen's voice trembled. Eve, please help us. I said nothing. The agents read them their rights. Cameras from their body rigs caught every word. The forged documents went into evidence bags. The half-empty water bottle was sealed and labeled. Marcus gestured toward the hallway. Let's debrief outside. I followed him onto the porch, the humid night closing around us. Unmarked cars lined the street. Neighbors peered through blinds at what looked like a drug bust. A spoke quietly. We've got them on attempted fraud, forgery, administration of a controlled substance, conspiracy to commit homicide, clean case. I rubbed the back of my neck. And Miguel? We'll work that from here, Marcus said. Their statements tonight plus the recordings will open a federal investigation. You won't be part of any sting against him. You've done enough." I gave a short, humorless laugh. "I feel like I've barely started." He studied me a moment. "You did exactly what we needed. And you kept your kids safe. That's what matters." Inside, agents moved around, cataloging evidence, photographing the kitchen. Derek shouted something unintelligible as they guided him out. I leaned on the porch railing, staring at the dark line of palm trees. My training had taught me how to react under fire, but nothing prepared me for betrayal from my own blood. Marcus touched my shoulder lightly. "We'll handle the rest." I straightened. "I'm not a victim," I said quietly. "I want to testify. I want the record clear." "You will," he said. An agent approached. "Van's ready." I nodded. "Let me grab my bag." Inside, the house looked like a crime scene now. Plastic gloves, evidence tags, the smell of latex and adrenaline. Colleen sat on a chair, cuffed, eyes swollen from crying. She looked up as I passed. "Eve," she whispered. "I didn't want to do this." I paused just long enough to meet her eyes. "You still did." She flinched as if struck. I picked up my beach bag, slung it over my shoulder, and walked out without another word. Travis stood by his SUV, arms crossed. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Kids?" "They're fine," he said. "Shaken, but safe." I gave him a tight nod. "Thanks." He shrugged. "You saved my life once. Consider us even." The agents loaded Derek and Colleen into separate cars. Their faces were pale, their shoulders slumped. Derek stared straight ahead. Colleen glanced back at me until the door closed. Marcus gestured toward his vehicle. "Ride with me. We'll debrief at the station." I slid into the passenger seat, the upholstery cool against my arms. As we pulled away from the rental, the porch light swung gently in the breeze like nothing had happened. My hands were steady in my lap. My mind cataloged the evening's events with the same clarity it used to catalog mission reports. Somewhere out there, Miguel Vargas would soon find out his cash cow had turned into a federal witness. That was his problem. For now, the only sound was the hum of the engine and the faint crackle of the radio. I leaned my head back, eyes open, breathing slow, letting the night air from the open window wash over my face. The beach was only a mile away, waves still rolling in like they had that morning when everything seemed normal. I sat upright, squaring my shoulders. "Let's finish this," I said softly. Marcus glanced at me, nodded once, and turned onto the highway toward the sheriff's office. The lights of the rental house faded in the rearview mirror until they were just another glow on the coast. The station lights were harsh after the dim glow of the rental. Marcus walked me straight through the lobby to a quiet conference room. 2 deputies brought in bottles of water and a tray of sandwiches. I hadn't realized how hungry I was until the smell hit me. "Sit," Mark said. "Eat something. We'll go over the statement while my team finishes booking them." I sat and unwrapped a sandwich, my hands still steady from the adrenaline. Travis leaned against the wall, arms crossed. His face looked drawn but satisfied. Marcus pulled out a tablet. "We're recording. Walk me through tonight in your own words. No need to dramatize. Just the facts." I swallowed a bite and started at the beginning, outlining each step of the dinner conversation, the forged paperwork, the confessions. Marcus listened without interrupting, only nodding occasionally, typing with his thumb. When I finished, he said, "That matches the live feed. Clean case. They're in holding cells now. Federal marshals will transport them in the morning." I took a drink of water. "And Miguel? We've already sent an alert to our Houston office," Marcus said. "With your sister's statement, we can open an organized crime file and move fast." I nodded. "Good." Travis stepped forward. "What about the kids?" "They're with our family liaison officer," Marcus said. "We'll bring them here once you're ready." I rubbed my forehead. "Bring them now. They've had enough bouncing around." He signaled to a deputy. "On it." While we waited, Marcus slid an evidence bag across the table. Inside were the forged papers and a half-empty bottle of water. "For the record," he said, "you want to add anything?" I shook my head. "Everything's in my statement." He nodded. "Then we'll prep for the federal arraignment. You'll be our primary witness. We'll have security measures in place. Vargas won't touch you or the kids." I exhaled slowly, some of the tension finally leaving my shoulders. The door opened and my children walked in, guided by a calm female officer. Grace ran to me, hugging my waist. Tyler hung back a second, reading the room like he'd learned from me. "It's okay," I told them. "We're done here." Tyler's eyes flicked to Marcus. "Who's he?" "Friend," I said simply. Grace pressed her face into my shirt. I was scared. "I know, honey." The officer crouched to their level. "Your mom's been helping us. You're both safe." Tyler nodded slowly. I hugged them both, feeling their warmth anchor me. The noise of the station faded, until all I could hear was their breathing. Marcus cleared his throat gently. "We've booked 2 rooms at a secure hotel, under alias names. Federal protection tonight." "Thank you," I said. He handed me a keycard packet. "Room 312. Travis will be across the hall. Tomorrow morning we'll start the formal process. You'll testify in front of a magistrate to establish probable cause for federal charges. After that, the U.S. Attorney's Office takes over." I put the packet in my bag. "Understood." Travis looked at me. "Want me to drive?" "I've got it," I said. "Kids need normal right now." We left the station together. The night air was thick but cooler than before, a faint salt smell drifting from the Gulf. The kids climbed into the back seat, Grace already nodding off. Tyler stared out the window, jaw tight like he was processing more than he could say. I started the engine. Travis followed in his SUV. Marcus stayed behind to finish the paperwork. The hotel was 10 minutes away, a bland business chain off the highway. The desk clerk didn't blink at our IDs, just handed over the keys with a rehearsed smile. Federal protocols at work. Inside the room, everything was neutral, beige, and white. I closed the curtains, double-checked the lock, and knelt in front of the kids. "You're safe," I said quietly. "Nobody's going to hurt us." Tyler whispered. "Was Aunt Colleen bad?" I held his gaze. "She made bad choices. That's all you need to know for now." He nodded, but his eyes were older than his years. Grace climbed onto one of the beds and curled up. "Can you stay with us?" "I'm not going anywhere," I said. Travis knocked softly and entered. He placed a bag of snacks on the table, just in case. "Thanks," I said. He leaned against the wall. "You handled that like a pro." I gave a tired half smile. "Old habits." "You saved your own life tonight," he said. I looked at my kids. "And theirs." End quote. He nodded. "Marcus will have agents on this floor all night. Nobody in or out without ID. You can actually sleep." I sat on the edge of the bed. "Sleep. Right." He glanced at his watch. "I'll be across the hall. Knock if you need anything." After he left, I turned off the overhead light and left only the bathroom light glowing. The kids settled under the covers, exhausted. I sat upright in a chair by the window, eyes on the parking lot below. Unmarked sedans idled at the far end, agents visible only if you knew where to look. The events of the last 2 days ran through my head like a mission debrief. The beach, the texts, the bait shop, the dinner table. Each moment a step in a covert op I never signed up for but executed anyway. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. Both suspects cooperating. Vargas case moving. Rest. I typed back. "Copy." I set the phone down and rubbed my temples. Grace stirred in her sleep and mumbled something. Tyler turned over, clutching his pillow. I rose, pulled the extra blanket from the closet, and draped it over them. For a moment, watching them breathe, the noise in my head quieted. I sat back down, hands clasped, eyes still on the parking lot. The steady rhythm of surveillance agents shifting positions, a car door opening, a brief radio crackle was oddly comforting. I wasn't in uniform anymore, but tonight had felt like a deployment. Rules of engagement, split-second decisions, lives on the line. Now, at least for a few hours, the mission was containment, not combat. I adjusted the chair, leaning back just enough to rest my head against the wall. My eyes stayed open, but my breathing slowed. Outside, a gust rattled the palm fronds. The neon hotel sign flickered but stayed lit. A truck downshifted on the highway and rolled on. In the stillness, I let the reality settle. The sting had worked, the law had them, the kids were safe. I took another breath and let my shoulders drop, not in surrender but in control. For the first time in days, my heart wasn't hammering. The room smelled faintly of detergent and coffee. My watch ticked softly on my wrist. I closed my eyes for just a second, not sleep, just a soldier's rest between moves. The way you do when you know the perimeter is secure and you've earned a brief pause before the next stage of the fight. The morning light slid through the heavy hotel curtains like a thin blade. I opened my eyes and checked my watch out of habit. 6. The kids were still asleep, their breathing soft and steady. I stood quietly, showered fast, and put on jeans and a plain shirt. It felt like gearing up for a briefing, except this time the uniform was civilian. A soft knock at the door. Travis stood there with a coffee tray and 2 paper bags. "Breakfast," he said simply. "Thanks." He stepped inside and set it on the table. "Marshals are on their way. They'll take you to the courthouse." I glanced at the kids. "I don't want them dragged through that circus." "They'll stay here with 2 agents and me," he said. "Hotel's locked down." I poured coffee into a cup and drank half in one go. "Good." At 7:30, Marcus arrived with a federal marshal in a Navy windbreaker. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be," I said. The marshal gave me a small nod. "You'll be in a witness room until the magistrate calls you." I knelt by the bed. "I'll be back soon," I told the kids. Grace blinked sleepily and nodded. Tyler squeezed my hand without a word. Downstairs, an unmarked SUV waited. The ride to the courthouse was silent except for the hum of tires. Downtown Pensacola looked normal office workers with coffee, joggers crossing streets, completely unaware a case built overnight from family betrayal to federal crime. Inside the courthouse, the marshal led me to a plain room with beige walls and a table. Marcus spread out paperwork, charging documents, evidence summaries, transcripts of last night's recording. He slid a copy of my statement across the table for me to review. I read each line carefully, initialing where needed. My hands were steady. My voice, when I spoke, was level. "It's accurate." He gathered the papers. "Good. In a few minutes, the magistrate will see the probable cause hearing. We'll present the charges. You'll confirm under oath what you witnessed." "Understood," I said. He looked at me. "How are you holding up?" "I've done depositions under mortar fire," I said dryly. "This is air-conditioned." He chuckled. "Fair enough. A bailiff opened the door. "We're ready." The courtroom smelled faintly of old wood and disinfectant. A few reporters sat in the back, murmuring. Federal marshals flanked the aisle. Derek and Colleen sat at the defense table in shackles, wearing orange jumpsuits from the county jail. Derek's face was pale and set. Colleen looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, eyes fixed on the table. When the magistrate entered, everyone stood. He took the bench, voice firm but even. United States versus Colleen Marks and Derek Marks on charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, forgery of federal documents, administration of a controlled substance with intent to harm, and attempted homicide of a federal beneficiary. The clerk called me to the stand. I walked up, raised my right hand, swore the oath, and sat down. Marcus began with straightforward questions. Name, rank, years of service, relationship to defendants, events of the past week. I answered clearly, keeping my eyes on the magistrate or Marcus, never on Derek or Colleen. He played a short section of the recording from my glasses. Derek's voice filled the room. "We'll set it up at the range. Once she's gone. Done." Gasps rippled from the back rows. Colleen closed her eyes. Derek stared at the floor. Marcus asked, "Is that the conversation you recorded on July 17th at the rental house?" "Yes," I said. "And did you consent to be wired by CID for the purpose of capturing this conversation?" "Yes." "And did you consume any substance later found to be lorazepam without your knowledge or consent?" "Yes." "Who provided that substance?" "I believe it was in bottled water given by Colleen Price Marks." Colleen flinched, but didn't look up. The magistrate asked a few clarifying questions about my accounts and military benefits. I answered succinctly. After 30 minutes, Marcus finished. The defense attorney declined cross-examination, asking for time to review discovery. The magistrate turned to the defendants. "You are remanded to federal custody pending trial." The gavel fell. It was done. As marshals led Derek and Colleen out, Colleen twisted to look at me. Her lips formed the word sorry, but no sound came out. Derek didn't look back. I stepped off the stand and walked out with Marcus. In the hallway, reporters pressed, but marshals blocked them. Marcus said quietly, "That was textbook. You gave us exactly what we needed." "I didn't do it for you," I said. "I did it because it was the right thing." He nodded once. "Understood." Outside, The humid air hit like a wall. Travis waited by the SUV. "All set?" he asked. "All set," I said. We drove back to the hotel. The kids were in the room watching cartoons, oblivious to the legal jargon that had just sealed their aunt and uncle's fate. Grace ran to hug me. Tyler asked, "Is it over?" "It's handled," I said. They relaxed a notch. Travis leaned against the dresser. "Marcus says the U.S. attorney will want a full debrief next week. But you're clear for now." "Good," I said. I sat on the bed, letting out a long breath. For the first time in days, my body started to feel the exhaustion I'd been holding off. Grace climbed into my lap. "Can we go to the beach again?" she asked softly. I kissed the top of her head. "Yeah, baby. We can." Tyler looked at me with quiet worry. "Are you mad at Aunt Colleen?" I met his eyes. "I'm sad for her, but she made choices we couldn't let slide." He nodded, thinking that over. The room smelled of coffee and laundry soap. Outside the window, palm fronds swayed under a blue sky. Life kept going. Travis cleared his throat. "There's something else Marcus mentioned. Victim Advocacy Fund for cases like this. They can help with counseling for you and the kids, relocation if needed, even legal fees if Miguel's crew tries retaliation." "I'll take the info," I said. He handed me a folder. Already printed. I set it on the table. "Thank you." He gave a small nod. "I'll be around until the marshals say otherwise." I stroked Grace's hair while Tyler fiddled with the TV remote. The image of Colleen's face in court stayed in my mind, but not like a wound, more like a scar that had already started to form. I'd been trained to finish missions and move on, but this wasn't a battlefield you walked away from in boots and body armor. This was family. Still, looking at my kids, feeling their warmth, I knew we were on the other side of the worst part. I shifted, straightened my back, and let the tension slide off like a pack at the end of a long march. The day outside was bright and ordinary, the kind of day people take for granted until it's almost stolen from them. I held it close without saying anything, just breathing it in. The days after the hearing blurred into a routine of interviews, signatures, and security briefings. U.S. Marshals escorted me and the kids back and forth from the hotel to the federal building. Travis stayed nearby, always one step behind, like a quiet shadow. Colleen and Derek remained in custody while agents dismantled Miguel Vargas's lending network, freezing accounts and collecting victims' statements. I made sure Tyler and Grace had counseling sessions arranged through the Military Family Services office. It felt strange walking them into a government building for therapy instead of summer camp, but they needed to see adults who specialized in picking up the pieces after trauma. They didn't ask for this, but they'd handled it with more composure than some soldiers I'd served with. At night, when the hotel room went quiet, I sat at the small desk, drafting the paperwork for a nonprofit Travis and I had been discussing. We called it the Sentinel Fund. The name came from a single idea: standing watch for those who've stood watch for others. Its mission would be to help veterans and their families targeted by financial predators, loan sharks, shady investment firms, even relatives. The paperwork for 501, C3 status, was longer than some mission orders, but it felt like a plan that mattered. Travis looked over my shoulder one evening. "You're not wasting any time," he said. "I've spent enough time reacting," I replied. "This is action." He nodded. "I'll be your first volunteer." I smiled faintly. "Good. I need someone who's not afraid of paperwork." Grace wandered over with a coloring book. "What's Sentinel?" she asked. "Someone who keeps watch," I said. "Like a guard." She thought about that, then nodded and went back to her coloring. 2 weeks later, the U.S. Attorney's Office called to confirm plea agreements. Both Colleen and Derek had agreed to cooperate against Miguel's organization in exchange for reduced sentences. I didn't feel triumph, just a hollow kind of relief. Their cooperation meant fewer victims down the road and less chance of reprisal against me and the kids. The day I signed my final witness affidavit, Marcus met me outside the courthouse. "It's officially done on our end," he said. "You'll still be on the witness list for the Vargas trial, but we'll handle logistics. For now, you can go home." Home? The word felt like an open door after a locked room. I loaded the kids into the car and headed west toward our own small house outside Mobile. The sky was clear, the road lined with green. As we crossed the state line, Grace hummed a tune from a cartoon. Tyler asked if he could have friends over next weekend. Ordinary questions, the kind that said life was stitching itself back together. When we pulled into the driveway, the dog barked from the porch. The kids tumbled out, racing to greet him. I stood for a moment with the car door open, breathing in the smell of cut grass and salt air. Inside, the house looked exactly as we'd left it, school projects on the fridge, a pile of unopened mail on the counter. I set down my bag and felt a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying finally lift. That evening, we sat on the back steps eating barbecue takeout. Travis had come by to drop off a final packet from Marcus. "You sure you're ready to settle back in?" he asked. "I'm ready," I said. "But I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen. The fund's going live next month." He raised his bottle of soda. "To Sentinel." "I klinked mina against his..." "To Sentinel." Grace curled against my side. "Can we still go to the beach?" "Of course," I said. "Just a different beach." She giggled. Tyler looked at me. "Are you mad at Aunt Colleen? Forever?" I thought about it. I'm sad about what she did, but I'm not going to let it define us. We'll see what the future holds after she serves her time. He nodded slowly. Travis stretched his legs. "You know, you could have done nothing, taken the kids and run. But you didn't." "I've spent my life telling young soldiers to stand their ground," I said. "I wasn't about to run from my own family." He smiled. "Guess some training sticks." Later, after the kids were in bed, I sat at the kitchen table with a blank notepad. The house was quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I started jotting ideas for the fund's first outreach program. Workshops at guard armories about spotting financial scams, a hotline for veterans who think they're being exploited, emergency grants for families under threat. It felt like drawing a map out of a minefield I'd just walked through. When I put the pen down, I noticed my hands weren't trembling. I walked to the kids' rooms, checked on them, then stepped outside into the warm night. The sky over Mobile was full of stars. For a moment, the smell of the Gulf breeze reminded me of that first morning on the beach before the text. Everything had changed, but we were still here. I took a long breath, squared my shoulders out of habit, and let it go. Not a soldier's stiff posture this time, just a mother standing watch because it's what she does. From inside, Grace called, "Mom?" I stepped back in. "Yeah, baby? Can you read us a story?" I smiled. "Absolutely." End of Frami. They piled onto the couch, and I read aloud from a library book until their eyes drifted closed. When the house was finally quiet, I closed the book and sat there a while, looking at their sleeping faces. The anger, the fear, even the bitterness had settled into something steadier, a sense of purpose. Betrayal had brought us here, but it didn't get to decide what happened next. In the silence, I could almost hear Travis's voice from earlier. "You saved your own life tonight." Maybe. But looking at my kids, I knew the real victory wasn't survival. It was turning something ugly into a mission that might protect others. I turned off the lamp, leaving just the soft glow from the hallway, and walked toward my own room. The Sentinel Fund paperwork waited on the kitchen table, but for the first time in weeks I felt no urgency to reach for it. It would be there in the morning. I paused at the doorway, listening to the house breathe around me, safe, ordinary, alive, and felt the ground steady under my feet.